Hi, do you know how to make darts in leather? If you don't, stay tuned and I'm gonna show you 3 amazing techniques how to make beautiful, decorative, easy to make darts. Here I have again my Napa leather. It's a lamb Napa we used before. I mark my dart on the wrong side of these letters with the notches at the beginning of my dart. That's gonna allow me to fold my leather with the right side inside, matching up notches on the top, and I'm gonna stitch my dart from the top of the dart to the end of the dart. Where is my point over here? I'm gonna do it exactly the same way as you're doing in the fabrics. So I'm gonna start from the top of my dart, reinforce stitches at the beginning of my sewing. I know you cannot see it really, but my end of my dart is over here. So I'm gonna follow my line of the dart I marked. And I'm gonna run my machine quite like 4 stitches along, kind of like on the same distance, like on the edge of the leather. I'm not cutting through that leather, but I want smooth finish here. So like 3 stitches, and I'm lifting up and not reinforcing my stitches. I'm just gonna cut off the threads and I'm gonna knot them. In this case, I'm using my 80 thread, which is a strong thread, but it's still quite fine. And I can work on my walking foot machine, which has got very strong pull. So I'm knotting a few knots to be sure that it's not gonna get undone. I'm leaving maybe 5 millimeters off. I'm cleaning off my work here. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna trim off excess of the leather. So I'm gonna go as slow as I can. I hope you can see it. And then I'm gonna cut that fold edge, which makes dart to open. Then on the top of my dart, where is like centimeter, depending on your seam allowance, I would have always centimeter seam allowance in my pattern. So a centimeter down from the top of the dart, I'm gonna literally trim off all the leather next to my stitching. That's gonna allow for the waistband not to have any bulk when I'm gonna approach my dart later on. So in leathers, you're always thinking where to reduce bulk as much as you can. So I open up my dart. I'm gonna hammer down. And I can even top stitch for decorative purpose, but also to keep it flat. So I'm gonna go to the bottom of my dart. You can even angle it like a little arrow shape. I went to the bottom of the dart. Then I'm gonna do stitch like very narrow, and then I'm gonna follow my seam line with the edge of my narrow foot to keep it even distance, to have a nice top stitching line. Let's clean off the threads. So here's my dart, flat stitched down. Then you can trim it off extras. This nice clean dot with a top stitching to the bottom of the dot, and it looks like that in a garment. I'm going to show you now different way of stitching dart. This is quite firm nappa. It's firmer than the other nappa we use. I'm using it because it's gonna show that type of dart I'm gonna do now much nicer. So I mark my dart on the wrong side as usual, and what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna cut this side of the dart, meaning when I'm staring at the dart is my right side. I'm gonna follow the line, cut exactly on the line to the end of the dart, to the point of the dart. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna overlay, I've got a notch here on the other side of my dart. I'm gonna lay over a raw edge of that cut. This type of dart I'm using in leathers, which they're more rigid, thicker, and the garment needs like kind of support of dart, but I don't want to bulk so much, and it's very nice and decorative also. Right now I'm using Mara 30 top stitching thread by Gutermann. Is a polyester thread, but it's used commonly in a industry, in a cloth industry, as well as a top stitching thread, so it's easy to obtain in the shops in UK and online. So we're gonna start with no more reinforcing, and I'm overlaying where the other line would be. You could draw the line. I don't, because I can feel the other part of the dart here. Can you see it? You can see it showing through. And I'm gonna follow the edge of my cut with the edge of my narrow foot. That's my guide. I'm gonna bring it down to the end of the dart, exactly to the point where the dart should finish. Maybe one more stitch further to just run off nicely. I'm not reinforcing. I'm leaving my threads long again, and I'm gonna pull through the top thread to the bottom of my work, and I'm gonna make a knot. You can knot it twice over triple. I'm not used to burning threads as they do in other leather work, as you have to remember this is a garment. That would be a garment, and if that is melted, it's gonna become rough, so I prefer leaving longer. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take my scissors and cut off of excess of this leather underneath, reducing completely thickness of this dart, so it looks like that neat on the bottom of the work and looks that neat on the front of the work. So that dart is the raw edge overlap dart. Now I will show you amazing technique how to stitch a dart from the end of the dart without reinforcing, and we're gonna do that using bobbing thread. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna thread our machine backwards. I'm pulling the thread from the bobbin. I'm threading my needle from the wrong side than I usually would do, basically opposite way. I'm gonna knot with my top thread. Now we knot top thread, and now I will pull upwards through all my tension systems through the both plates. And to be honest, here is our knot, so it goes through all the threading loops. It's quite long. That's enough thread, the length of the thread, to do the job we need. Is one continuous thread running from the bobbin upwards through the needle and from rest of the tension systems. Yeah, and that's what we need. Now I'm gonna take my another dart I mark exactly the same way as previously on the wrong side of my work. But what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna start stitching from the bottom of my dart, not from the top of my dart. It's marked the same way, so I'm gonna fold it on a half as on the previous one. Yeah, notch on notch here. So it is very important that I'm holding exactly on the point, ending point of my dart. So I'm doing reverse order of stitching what I previously showed you. I'm approaching exactly on the point end where is nearly on the edge of the letter, my needle, and I'm gonna start stitching without reinforcement. On the end of my dart, and that's actually top of my dart where the waist would be, I'm gonna reinforce it. I didn't reinforce it at the beginning of the work. I'm gonna take it out. And now when I cut it off, I'm gonna trim the same way as I usually trim. So my first centimeter to have for the waistband, and then just the edge of my fold to open up the dart as far as I can go, but be careful not to cut your stitching, yeah? So that's open up. I'm gonna open it with a hammer to flatten down. That's how it looks, that dart on the bottom. This is my favorite technique because it involves beautiful finish on the bottom of the dart. There is no perforation, and you basically can beautifully run out to the bottom of the dart. There is no loops, no nothing. Like, it's basically super clean. The seam allowance down, we can trim it off a bit to keep it tidy. Usually you would have a lining in a dress or a skirt or dress or whatever, but look how beautiful is that dart. It's super flat, it's super beautiful shaping. That would be my third dart. So just to remind you, 3 ways of stitching darts in leather. That's the one as normal in fabric. You reinforce on the bottom and on the top and the bottom knot. You can top stitch it to keep it flat down and makes it look like that. Then our raw edge overlap dot, which is amazing for stiffer, thicker letters where you still need to create dots. And our last dot with no reinforcement, with pulling thread from the bobbin upwards, making very clean finish on the bottom of the dot. And that's how it makes the dot look. It's very clean and beautiful, and it's never gonna open here. Basically, it's not gonna rip or open. So that's my favorite always to use. It's a bit time consuming to rethread it from the bottom of the bobbin, but it makes beautiful finish. Thank you so much for watching. See you soon.